Hello, welcome to Woogie Wedding Wednesday, where I read things I've written on a Wednesday, except this week it's not a Wednesday. So let's get started. The band. Oh, hello. The man looked at him quietly, examining it as he hummed quietly. As he looked at it, he stared pensively. There had to be a power source somewhere. He tapped the bot all over, hoping something would open up, but it didn't budge. He sighed and made his way out of the room. Maybe if he came back later, he could figure it out. He made his way down the hall, tiptoeing past Nina's room, and slid quietly down the stairs. As he stepped, they each let out a gentle squeak. He cringed, hoping Ma wouldn't hear him up so late. He wasn't really sure why she was so adamant about staying tucked in from dusk till dawn, but it's not like it mattered that much. The kitchen was dark for the most part, except for the moonlight that shone through the window near the sink. His eyes seemed drawn to the light. He couldn't help but stare at the moon. It was so clear that night that in that lake it sparkled so beautifully. His heart pounded hard. He knew if Pa saw him splashing, there would be hell to pay. But oh well. He was sure Pa was out, especially since the house was basically shaking from how loud his snores were. He struggled and he shrugged and walked towards the back door. Thor knew it was the quietest way out since it was always partway open already. Pa liked to keep the airflow on the ground floor, and since it wasn't the rainy season, it would be okay. He stepped out onto the soft soil. It squished softly underfoot, making him smile. He looked around instinctively and made his way around the house and onto the path to the lake. He found himself skipping, letting out a soft chuckle as he made his way through the tall grass. Normally he would use his secret path that he made in the grass, but with the lack of light, he found it better he'd just take the normal route. Wow, he let out as he sat himself down on a small log. He felt the warm summer breeze glide over him. The frogs croaked in the distance, matched only by the call of the cicadas. He closed his eyes gently and took in a deep breath. The world seemed to stop for just a moment. As he opened his eyes, he couldn't help but look up at the stars. They were so shiny, twinkling little lights. It felt like he could be the only person in the world. His eyes were wide as he laid back into the grass. He felt his head thud against the ground. He felt jostled, but he couldn't help but notice a smile on his face. He couldn't tell what stars were constellation or stand alone, but it really didn't matter. They were just pretty to look at. He felt his eyes closing, almost falling asleep, when he caught sight of something in the sky. It was like a shooting star dashing across the night sky. It was almost entrancing as it flew, growing and growing, getting closer and closer. He sat up and began to push himself ever so slightly backwards in his approach. It flew so fast at him he barely had time to react before it was right in front of him. He turned his face, bracing for impact, but there was no whack to the face. He squinted one eye open before giving a puzzled stare. It was like nothing he'd seen before. It was a sort of stone. Glowing lines covered it, making it look almost like a small hourglass. He was stunned, but instinctively he put his hands out. It slowly fell into his hands, losing its bright light. He felt its sleek exterior. It was some kind of hard metal. It was light, but a solid piece. He had so many questions. What could it be for? Why? How? He could hardly think straight, but it seemed best he wait to inspect it in the light of the morning sun. He picked himself up and headed back to his room, where he couldn't help but dream of all the possibilities. When he woke, he popped out of bed and went into his work desk. He looked at the rusty machine on the floor and back at the hourglass he had found that night before. It was strange. It was as though he had felt they were connected somehow. He stared at the robot he had found just beneath that willow tree. It had been months since then. A weird space rock couldn't be connected to it after all this time, could it? He examined the robot closer, but there didn't seem to be anything remarkable about it. It had a circular head, 2 squares for a body, and 2 small rectangles that could have worked as weird arms. But there didn't seem to be any kind of holes or panels. But then, as a strange moment of impulsivity, he took the hourglass and placed it on the robot's back. But nothing happened. The metal piece fell to the floor as he stood up. Throwing his hands Oh, on the floor. As he stood up, throwing his hands in the air out of frustration, he let out a grunt and stomped away down the stairs to the kitchen. Boy, don't you be stomping on my floor! Sorry, Ma. She pulled out a plate and placed 3 pancakes on it. So what was getting on your nerves this morning? Normally your tinkering makes you happier than anything. Oh, it's nothing. Now don't go lying to your ma, boy. Yeah, she'll bring out the spoon. Oh, don't worry about it. I'm just glad he's keeping busy. She smiled. Thor smiled back, finishing his meal, and headed back upstairs. His jaw dropped. In front of him was the robot. At least it looked the same, except it was no longer rusty. It was white, almost looking like lead glass, and small light green circuits covered it in a classy design. Hello, it said. Thor just blinked as he let out a huff of surprise. Did you just... He tried to muster the words, but the robot, slowly hovering towards him, left him speechless. I am DR4KO L15, training robot, it said as in a monotonous call. Someone pinch me, I'm dreaming. As you wish. The bot made his way over and poked Thor with the edge of his arm. Was that sufficient, sir? He asked. Thor began to giggle. You know, I think it was, but how the hell is this all... Sir, I am unable to comprehend explicit vocabulary. Please do refrain from using... Oh, sorry, my bad. He looked at the DR4KO closer. Could you turn around for me, Draco? Of course, sir. The robot did as he was asked and turned around. Aha! Thor exclaimed, leaning in and touching the hourglass on his back. So this fixed you then? Fixed me? Thor could see the wired coils that connected them. It was the hourglass. I wonder what else you can do. Thor prodded Draco, who sat silently on the floor. Hey Draco, what's your job? Thor said, leaning into Draco's face. His green eyes were wide with excitement. My job is to perform the task asked of me. Thor had a sly smirk on his face. So you'll just do what I tell you? As long as it is within my capabilities, sir, yes. Thor rubbed his hands together, as though he was thought of some evil mastermind before composing himself once again. So, what all can you do exactly? Are you asking for a demonstration? Yes, please. But can we do it outside? I don't want Ma getting mad at me. Don't want that again. Mad? Thor ignored him and opened the door. We have to be quiet. Can't let anyone see how cool you are. Understood. Suddenly, he seemed to disappear. Secret mode activated. Well, that's cool. He couldn't help but reach his hand out, and yep, his new toy was still there. They made their way down the stairs, easy enough. There was with a rambunctious grin from ear to ear. What's that look for? What are you up to? Ma called over. Oh, it's nothing, he said, giggling, heading outside. Just keep your eye out for your sister, okay? Got it, Ma. He opened up the door, letting his invisible friend come out and followed suit. Okay, I think we're in the clear now. You can show yourself again. Okay. The robot appeared once again, following Thor in the meadows. Just a little bit in there, and then I want to see what you can do. He skipped happily along when suddenly there was a cry from the willow tree. It was Nina. She was hanging on a limb. It was about to break. Nina! Thor yelled out, running over to the tree. He thrashed out his arms as fast as he could. Nina, hold on! He was only a few feet away when a sudden crack echoed. He closed his eyes as he sprinted over, his heart beating out of his chest. His mind exploded with fear, but when he got closer, his mind cleared. There she was, being slowly lowered by Draco, who looked like a stretched out accordion. Do not worry. When they call Nina, you are safe. even though his voice was calm. She clearly was not. As they closed in on the ground, Thor could see her body shaking with fear. Could barely stand, her legs buckling underneath her. Whoa, Nina, are you okay? He leaned over and put his arm around her. You... Ah, no! No! You know you shouldn't be up that high. It's too dangerous. She nodded with shaking. I just thought... Thank you, Mr. Robot Man. She smiled, and shyly looked over the other way. It was no problem. I am here to help. She stared at Draco for a second, and then back to her brother. Aha! That's what that thing... Ah, see? Mom's gonna get you. She laughed, but actually... Hey, that thing just saved your life, you know. You should be grateful. She looked down in shame and back over to her brother. So, you gonna tell me about him? I am DR4KO L15. This master has brought power back to my system. She looked back at him inquisitively. Are you an evil robot? She asked. Thor slapping his own forehead. Why would you even ask that? I don't know. I feel like it's something you gotta know. I am not an evil robot. Do not fear. I would not harm a living being. Good. I'm glad to hear it. She smiled, looking bored. So... Should we go play? Draco, come on! She cheered, pulling him away. Hey, wait up! Thor scrambled after them, not quite ready for whatever Nina had in mind. The three were exhausted from playing all day, and the sun seemed to be about all ready to set. Oh, we better go inside. Don't want Ma yelling at us again, Thor said, pulling him into the house. Is Pa scared of the night? I would think it'd be safe. There appears to be... Oh. Is Pa scared of the night? I would think it would be safe. There appears to be no threats currently. I don't know, but Pa says things might happen, so it's best not for our own good. Nina said. Understood. Daytime is nice. Draco said it and followed suit. Draco went into his camouflage and went upstairs as Thor instructed, whilst him and the rest of his family had supper. Per usual, Pa complained about his work, making that new technology they were being forced to use, and Ma consoled him by reminding him that nobody could possibly replace such a hard-working father. Their kids then shared their days, detailing every bit besides the whole crazy robot parts, and then quickly headed up to bed. As he entered the room, Draco cocked his head as he looked out the window. You looking at the stars, pal? Pal? What is the meaning of this word? It's just a friend. A friend? Draco seemed lost in thought. Either way, see you tomorrow. Good night, Thor said, wrapping himself up tightly in his little blanket, and was instantly asleep. Thought of his new friends echoed in his mind. As he looked out at the night sky, he could see something flying in the distance, and he felt the world start to drift away. He rubbed his eyes and looked over to the clock on that old wall. Why today? He thought to himself, straining to get out of bed. He made his way down the stairs and into the kitchen. After all these years, it still smelled like her cooking. He walked over to the cupboard and grabbed the last of the coffee. Perfect timing, I guess. He turned on the pot and brewed it, rubbing the back of his neck. It felt like a lifetime ago that he'd been given this gift. That fateful day when he had been made his first friend. It all seemed to float back to him. All the games they played. Learning tag and hide and seek. Cards had been his favorite. He smiled as he looked out that great window. It reminded them of his trip to Greece. Those many years ago. How it felt like to frolic on the beach. So young and free. His mind raced with memories of Western Europe with crepes by the Eiffel Tower or perusing the shops along the Venetian canals. He could have lived those days forever, but as the weeks and months poured on, his friend continued to grow and change. The mustache came in, his comfy jeans turned to a classy tux, the doves on his wedding day, a tight-knit couple turned into a family. The family became many families right before his eyes. He creaked out that old door, that same door that they had gone through that first fateful day. He made his way out the lake and over to the willow tree. He had wondered why it had to be this way, how his best friend could leave him after so long, why his pal had grown so strong and become so frail like a little flower. And now only a rock marked his life, bound to be weathered. He felt the cold steel in the back of his neck and stared with nothing but contentment. And in those same words of his dearest confidant, he whispered, "Thank you for being a friend," as a rust tin machine clanked under that old willow tree. Indeed. That took like 60 minutes. It is like 12 pages. That was a lot. So